Okay, cool. Welcome, everybody. And for some of you who joined me last week, hope you enjoyed that. And cool. I hope that I hope that you did manage to work on on some of your strategy, and understand that it's a process and everything. But at least, like they say, is just start. When's the best time? Is just start now. So, so a little bit about me. I'm an entrepreneur, business leadership coach for over 30 years, building businesses and helping other people do the same. I've been through, the cuck of business, facing real world challenges of entrepreneurship. And I still do sometimes, but also focus on helping business owners, leaders, and entrepreneurs unlock their full potential. And I've worked with a wide range of organizations, from Nedbank, Mercedes, Toyota, Grant Thornton, Nando's, Liberty Life, and where, I guide leaders and teams through growth, change, and the day-to-day realities of business. And I currently head up Grow Franchise and Retail, which assists retail franchises to scale with effective leadership. So today so you've done your strategy. So we're going to assume that. But now remember, strategy, and this is what we often find, is that strategies, sometimes people work on these great strategies, but then they do nothing about it. They do not execute on that. And that's what we're going to be doing today. So last week, you would have defined who you serve, why you exist, where you stand, where you're going, where you'll compete, what makes you different. That was the strategic thinking. And I'm hoping, that brought a lot of clarity to you. But today is different. Today we're going to change how you operate. Because clarity without execution creates frustration. Strategy without discipline creates drift. So today is not about more ideas. Today is about installing operating discipline. So this is a term I told you about. Graham, who's my partner, he wrote the book Compounding Advantage. And he speaks about the whirlwind. And it's something that I've got no doubt every one of you will identify with. The whirlwind is the daily operational noise of running a business. You've got urgent emails, you've got customer complaints, missed tenders, deadlines, admin, cash flow pressures. It's the work, but it's the work that is required for you to survive today. So the problem isn't that it does, that it exists. And this is the key problem and challenge, is that it dominates. Its impact is predictable and damaging. It kills strategic momentum. Teams start a quarter focused on goals, then what happens? Daily pressure takes over. Strategic initiatives stall. It creates an urgency trap. What happens? Urgent tasks scream. Strategic goals whisper. Because urgent talks cause immediate pain if ignored. Strategic work causes delayed pain if ignored. And that delay tricks leaders into neglecting it. It locks leaders into firefighting. You spend all your time reacting, doing this, doing that. Initiatives pile up half finished. Progress slows. The business plateaus instead of compounding. And what happens? It actually creates a paradox. But the thing is, you can't actually ignore the whirlwind, because the whirlwind is what actually funds the business. But if you only manage the whirlwind, you never build the future. But the solution isn't elimination. It's more about discipline. So in short, the whirlwind keeps you alive, strategy makes you grow, And you as leaders must deliberately protect time for the second while managing the first. Oh, another thing that I forgot to mention, I would rather do questions at the end. Because with me, normally, like, you're going to get a lot of content and material and everything. So I'd rather go through all of that, and then we can have questions at the end. So I spoke to you and I said, so today's different. Today, we're going to change how we operate. And it's not more about more ideas. It's about installing that operating discipline. So if you remember, I spoke to you about the whirlwind, okay, which always happens over there. And it's always happening. But by the end of the session, 4 things must exist for you. This is what we're going to work through. A clear 12-month strategic objective. And then from that strategic objective with its key results, we're going to break it down into what are you going to be doing for the next quarter. And it's actually ideal if you can complete this. If your financial year is from 1st of March to 28th of February, this is actually a great time because this is your first quarter. And so you're going to have a focused 90-day objective with 3 to 4 measurable key results. And we're going to look at a scheduled weekly execution review, which is going to be in your calendar. So there is quite a lot of work that we need to do. So at Grow, a lot of companies talk about KPIs and I'm not sure what else, other terms are, but at Grow, we use what's called OKRs, which, as you will see, are objective, O, and then key results, okay, objectives and key results. And then each key result has got actions that you need to do to go and ensure that if you complete these actions, you're going to deliver on that key result. And if you deliver on these key results, you're going to deliver on the objective. And that objective is what is going to move the needle the most for your business. Like I mentioned last week, as entrepreneurs, we love the sparkly things. We can be thinking, okay, cool, this is what I'm going to do. So we start on something, and the next thing we start doing something else, and then we start doing something else. And one of the biggest things that I'd like you to take out of this session is less is more. I promise you, less is more. And this is what we're going to be focusing on. So throughout this presentation, I thought I'd use a case study, to go and show you how all of this works, from having the 12-month objectives and key results, which is 1 or 2, and then we're going to break it down into the 90 days. What's your next 90 days? So what's going to be March, April, May, if this is your Q1 or whichever quarter it is. Okay, so the case study that we're going to be using is, imagine a marketing agency is currently doing 16 million in annual revenue, and they want to grow to 20 million in the next 12 months. Okay, so you can already see there's a bit of an annual objective there. And a little bit about the company. They've got 25 retainer clients. They've got a net promoter score of 6, which is an effectiveness which is how effective you are with your clients, how they view you. They've got an average campaign turnaround time of 14 days. 22% of their campaigns requiring major work. And obviously they've got increasing team stress, and growth has stalled. Sorry, just in the background, somebody just needs to be muted. Hello. Hi, can you mute yourself? Thank you. I'm hoping. Okay. And so we're going to be using this agency, this case study, to walk through the entire process. So this is, setting goals and incentives, so setting incentives and everything, and you're going to see how this is all going to come together, is important, as they drive behavior. However, they can have perverse incentives or unintended results. And what this is, there's actually a term for it called the Cobra effect, where things come back to bite you. The term comes from an anecdote set in colonial India. During British rule, there were a lot of venomous snakes in Delhi. So the government decided to start a program to incentivize the people of Delhi to kill the snakes. For each snake killed, the person would receive a bounty. Week after week, snakes were brought in and bounty collected. Excuse me. And they were paying out large sums of money until one day, an officer went into the countryside and discovered that the people were breeding cobras since it was more profitable to breed snakes than many other jobs around. So obviously, what did the British government do? They cancelled the program and they stopped paying the bounty. But what did the population do? They released all the snakes. So the government ended up with more snakes than before, but it spent a massive amount of money. So the key point here is that, and I think for me, there's two key points. We've got to be very clear on the objectives and key results that we choose, but also another way of seeing it is we've got to make sure that the key results, okay, are balanced. So here's an example, so a couple of examples of perverse incentives. Sales teams with tough quarterly targets give discounts at the end of a quarter to reach target. So what happens? Clients wait until the end of the month, end of the period, to get a better price. And this is what typically happens with car dealerships, because a lot of the salespeople, they go and achieve their targets. Okay, they go and achieve their targets in that, but what they do, they often measured with units. A car sold. So what do? They go in, and so maybe they haven't achieved their car unit sales. So what do? They go and incentivize people and reduce the price. Managers try to spend all their budget surplus in the year, even on non-important things, to avoid next year's budget being reduced. And this is what happens often. So where a key result, remember, you've got objectives, and from objectives, you've got key results. That need to happen. Where a key result has a potential to have perverse incentives, a countermeasure is added. A paired metric which addresses the adverse consequences of the first metrics. For example, increase sales value from 10 to 12K. Improve sales volumes by 5% per customer. So what could happen, and this happens often, then we think about, okay, cool. Now if the objective is all about achieving sales, then what do we do sometimes? We reduce our price. But now a countermeasure, if we go back to the Cobra story that we add in, is to ensure that we maintain GP margins at 35%. Because the key thing, we don't want to just grow sales and volume at any cost. We need to ensure that we still maintain our GP margins. So the last key result is the countermeasure. So then execution is, I'm going to say it's quite simple, everybody, it's the same as losing weight. Okay. We know what to do, but we don't always do it. Execution is clarify the outcome. And the outcome for us is what's going to be in 12 months. Where do we want our business to be in 12 months time? What are those things that are going to move the needle the most? Then from there, we're going to identify the bottleneck. We're going to be working through this. Okay, identify the bottleneck. Then from the bottleneck, we're going to be breaking it up into 90 days. And then we got to ensure that, remember, there's always the whirlwind, but we've got to protect our time to ensure, yes, we're taking care of the whirlwind, which is critically important to the business. But we also need to ensure that we're protecting our time to go and grow the business. And then at the end of every 90 days, we review, adjust, repeat. And this is a cycle that I'm going to encourage you to do. You know, so we've worked with, I think right now we've got about 200 businesses that we coach at Grow. Okay. And one thing that clearly comes up, the businesses that are the most successful are not the ones with the best strategy or the best differentiator in the business or in the industry or the best leadership. The best businesses, because we've got so much research to go and show this, are the ones that have done their strategy, that have then developed their 12-month objectives and key results, 1 to 2, and they've broken that down into 90 days for the next quarter, and they know what they need to do, and they constantly and consistently execute on the OKRs for that next 90 days. And then come the end of that 90 days, review, adjust, repeat. Go for the next 90 days. I promise you guys, this is really what separates majority of businesses from one another. So, remember when we spoke about the whirlwind? Execution fails because urgent tasks crowd out important goals. I'm sure even some of you are thinking, you know what, I'm going to set my OKRs and blah, 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 for this quarter. But remember the whirlwind. And this is what we're also going to be focusing on, is installing that discipline. And all we say is, at least is try and go and do 3 hours max a week. If you can't do the ideal, you want to work for 3 hours working on the business. It's the difference of working on the business or working in the business. But majority of us as entrepreneurs, and I've seen this too many times with with other businesses. But not only that, I also catch myself. We work so much in the business that we don't work on the business. So we need to ensure that we always setting time aside. And look, ideal is 3 hours. But please, you know what? Right now, even if you can just do half an hour, that's more than what some of you are currently doing. So we protect time and we work in 90-day cycles, like I said. And then what happens? Compounding happens quarter by quarter. Let me restate, the principle clearly. Moving from vision to execution requires disciplined prioritization, not more ideas. Most businesses don't fail because of poor thinking. They stall because of diluted focus. We're all over the place. Execution begins when we say, this, not that. Okay? And that's really a key thing. We've got to learn to say no to certain things, even if they seem like they're great ideas. Execution is mastering the how. Strategy is the recipe. Execution is doing it exceptionally well, quarter after quarter after quarter. The core idea we're working with today is strategic compounding. Small, ready improvements, repeated consistently over 90-day cycles. And this is what creates massive cumulative advantage. Not disruption, not hype, it's discipline. So, before we design the next 90 days, we must first anchor the next 12 months. And this is where, so remember what I said, it begins with identifying what are your 1 or 2 objectives and key results that if you're going to achieve them at the end of the year, maybe then that's 28th of February, your business is going to be in a very different space. What are those 1 or 2 annual objectives that are going to move the needle for you the most? I'm not talking, please, not 10 goals. And here I'm not even talking about sparkly things. We think we've got to fix this, fix this, fix this, fix this, fix this. Okay? Rather, and so much research has shown, less is more. Rather go and work on your 1 or 2 things, get that right. Then what happens? When you get that right, then you start working on the next thing. Because remember, if you're working on many things, you will never, ever achieve great quality in terms of those OKRs. Focus 1 or 2. And so this is the annual objectives. This defines the mountain. And then, but the 90-day objective defines the next climb, for that mountain. So going back to the case study, the 12-month objective is grow revenue 16 to 20 million while improving client retention and delivery consistency. So think about, this is what success looks like, for this marketing company. So going back, if you manage to complete your phases 1 and 2 in terms of that document that I sent yesterday, okay, and if you never received it yesterday because you've only joined today or whatever, please ask Tracy and I'm sure she'll send it to you. Oh, and a copy of this presentation I'll be sending, okay? So if you completed phases 1 and 2, I'd like you to look at the initiatives you've identified as your high leverage. Remember, what are the 1 or 2 things, not anything more, that are going to move the needle the most for your business? Okay. Objectives. So this is the objective. We're going to work on the key results now, but the objective must be outcome driven. It must be meaningful enough to matter. It must create strategic shift in your business. And it must require real change. Because obviously, if it was already happening, you would be doing those things already. So what needs to really change? And where I say it must be achievable, and I'm saying achievable within 12 months. I go against sort of that achievable because there's a whole thing with with so much research and everything, people are able to achieve a lot more than they give themselves credit for. Okay, and a great objective is if you only achieve it, say 70%, 70 to 80%, you've actually done well. Because if you go and achieve the objective, say every annual and every quarter, you're actually not stretching yourself sufficiently. So remember, a great objective is if you achieve 70, 80%, you've done well. But if achieving this objective does not require you to operate differently, okay, like I said, it's not strong enough. So we've got the objective, but now, remember, under the objective is we need to go and define a maximum of 3 to 5 annual key results. If you've got more than 5, and I want to stress this, for the key results are the things that you need to do, and if you achieve them, it's going to enable you to achieve your objective. And if you've got more than 5, you're actually avoiding choice. So for the marketing agency, the 12-month objective was grow revenue from 16 to 20 million while improving client retention and delivery consistency. And then under that objective, we could define the following annual key results. Increase revenue from 16 to 20 million. Improved net promoter score from 6 to 8. reduce campaign turnaround time from 14 to 5 days, increase client retention from 82% to 92%. So if you can see those key results, they're very clear. They've got a baseline, they've got a target, they've got a date, and a critical thing here is, and there's only a single owner. You cannot have two owners of one key result. It does not work. We've seen it just too many times. One person has to take ownership for that. Okay, so now we've defined the 12-month annual OKRs, maximum 1 or 2. That's it, maximum 2. Okay, and then, so once we've got that, we're going to say, okay, cool. If we want to grow from 16 to 20 million, okay, we got to ask ourselves, what is the single biggest bottleneck right now that is holding us back? What is the reason that we're not achieving it? Okay, so for this 12-month objective to become inevitable, we need to ask, what's that biggest bottleneck that's limiting our progress right now? And a bottleneck cannot be something like, a vague weakness or a frustration like team capability. We need to break that down, because a bottleneck is a single measurable constraint that is limiting our progress. Okay, so let's go back to our agency. Let's diagnose it properly. Data shows 22% of campaigns require major work. Strategy briefs are inconsistent. Project stalls between accountant managers and creatives. And clients request revisions, obviously due to misalignment. So these are the diagnosing of the bottlenecks, because if they wanted to achieve grow from 16 to 20 million. So what is the bottleneck? Is it revenue? Is it net promoter score? Is it culture? But no, the bottlenecks, if we look at after research, it's operational inconsistency causing 22% rework and delivery delays. So remember, a bottleneck must be measurable. 22% rework is measurable. 14 days and a 14-day turnaround can be measured. But like I said, when you talk about team capability or customer experience, those can't be measured. You need to break it down. We are looking for the root cause of what's causing these issues. So, performance is measurable. Okay? In the workshop, once the bottleneck is specific and measurable, from there, we design the 90-day objective around fixing that constraint. So the real rule is direction defines the bottleneck. Remember, the bottleneck must be measurable. The 90-day objective targets that constraint, that bottleneck. If it can't be measured, it's not a bottleneck yet. Okay, so remember, we've created the 12-month objectives and key results. Maximum 2. Then we've identified what is the biggest constraint, what is the biggest bottleneck. And this becomes, now we take that and say, now we design our 90-day objectives. And this is the next climb. So, and I mentioned these, but you'll see the objectives have got different things at different times. So a powerful objective must be outcome driven, must address the bottleneck. Because if you don't address that bottleneck, the root cause, more than likely you're still going to be in the same place as you currently are. It must be the objective must create tension. You must feel uncomfortable, because remember, as human beings, we only grow when we're feeling uncomfortable. Must require behavioral change. If this objective does not force a change in how you operate, Go back to the drawing board, because it's all about behavior change. So going back to the marketing company, what must change in the next 90 days to make 20 million inevitable? For the agency, 16 to 20 mil, remember? They've identified that it's a 22% rework and a 14-day turnaround. So an objective could be install structured campaign briefing, workflow accountability, and quality control to eliminate rework and accelerate delivery speed. So that's very clear on what all they need to do. Because if this objective succeeds, think about it, okay? If they live and obviously they're the key, the results that go into this. But if they go and do this, you're going to experience the following behavior changes. You can have clear briefing standards for the marketing agency. You can have defined stage ownership. You can have weekly production review. And there's going to be a quality gate before client submission. So these are all the things that if you get your objective right, okay, because you've identified what's the most important constraint and brought it into your 90 days, then you are going to achieve a lot of progress. And remember, OKRs are all about behavior. Because if the behavior doesn't change, I can promise you, performance won't change. You need to change behaviors within your business. And if you change those behaviors, but making sure, please, once again, that you're focusing on the right behaviors, performance will change. Okay. So now, remember, we've designed our objective for the 90 days. Now we need to come up with, and I'm going to say 3 to 4 max of key results. Because remember, you've got the objective, and then you need 3 to 4 key results that if you achieve these key results, you're going to achieve your objective. And remember, each key result has got a lot of actions that you do on a weekly basis. Okay. So what makes a strong key result? So key results, follow a bit of the SMART principle, when designing your goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, realistic, and must have a time frame. Okay, so they must be measurable. They must be outcome based. Too many times, and you know what? I'll show you on the next slide. They must be outcome based. Have one owner, and that if you achieve it, that key result, you're going to be making undeniable progress. So each key result must follow this format. There must be one owner. Examples, if we go and look here, a weak key result, improve client satisfaction. You can see there's no outcome. There's no direct outcome. It cannot be measured. There's no specific owner. Okay. A strong one is, you can see, increase Net Promoter Score from 6 to 8 by Q4. And obviously, you're going to see that there's owners attached over here. Reduce rework from 22% to 10% by end of Q1. You can't also think that within Q1, you're going to go from 22% to 5% within that next quarter of doing all your rework using the marketing company as an example. And you can't go from reduced turnaround from 14 to 2 days by Q1. So it's also got to be measured. Remember, it's about compounding growth. All those little things that you do along the way, and they all compound. And that's when you get great growth. Okay. Oopsie. So here, For our agency, 90-day key results might be reduce campaign work from 22 to 12%, reduce turnaround time from 14 to 8 days, achieve 95% compliance with standardized campaign briefing template, reduce internal approval delays from 3 days to 1 day, and improve net promoter score from 6 to 7. So you can see a key result is very clear. What needs to be achieved? Where are you currently? What's the target? Okay. And I'm going to ask you, what's the one thing that's missing on there? Yes. Who's the owner? The ownership. Because each key result must have an owner, one owner that is assigned to it. If this fails, okay, whose name is attached? If 2 people own it, no one owns it. So key results measure performance shift. Think about the key results of the marketing company. If you have the discipline and follow through, this is what happens. You're going to have faster delivery. Think about their key results. You're going to have faster delivery. You're going to have happier clients. You're going to have less burnout, higher retention, more capacity, and revenue becomes predictable. So let me tell you where most OKRs fail. It's not in design, but it's in rhythm. Because I've also seen this. People, entrepreneurs, remember we've worked with so many businesses, People can have great strategies. We're going to do a full, well thought out strategy, okay, which I went through the framework last week. And companies do that, okay? Then I've seen companies go and create wonderful annual OKRs. And from those annual OKRs, they've defined what's their biggest constraint, their bottleneck and everything. And then, because remember, it's about changing behavior. And they've created brilliant 90-day objectives and key results. And they've also defined, because remember, you've got an objective, you've got key results, 3 to 4 underneath, and then you've got all the actions that you need to do on a weekly basis, that if you do those actions, you will achieve your key results. And if you achieve those key results, you're going to achieve your objective. I've seen people be brilliant at that. But what happens? The whirlwind comes in. And also, they don't have the discipline. And there's a couple of things which are critical to ensuring that you are going to be most effective with an objective, with achieving your objectives and key results. One is you need to, let me just put this, you need to have a weekly meeting rhythm. Okay? And, okay, I know it says here non-negotiable weekly discipline, but we've also seen companies become successful when, at the most, is bi-weekly, where the leadership team comes together and they review. It's a short 30 minutes, okay? That's all. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to provide you with an agenda now. Okay. And the key thing is sitting down. Oh, sorry, whose ever mic is on, just mute. Is having a weekly agenda at a set time, but also bi-weekly at most. Okay. And people are very disciplined to that weekly or bi-weekly meeting rhythm. Because if it's not reviewed weekly or bi-weekly, what are you saying? Actually think about it. You're actually saying it's not important. Everything else is important, but this is not important. So yeah, the purpose of a weekly OKR meeting is simple. You review your indicators, and then what happens, and I'm going to show you an example where you've gone, because you've got a scoreboard, which I'm coming to now, okay? And your scoreboard is, how are you doing? Come and say all your actions that you've got. If you're comfortable and you're flying with your actions, you give yourself a green. If you're so with, with carrying out all your actions, there might be an amber. If you see that you're falling way behind, you give yourself a red. And then, but a key thing there is don't just give yourself a score, is ask yourself, what is the reason that maybe I've given myself an amber or that I've given myself a red? Identify that constraint. What is holding you back? Because if we don't think about it and reflect and say, what is holding me back? What do you think is going to happen the next week? Same thing. What's going to happen the next week? Same thing. So identify the constraint and commit the next corrective action. And that's it. So there's no strategy discussion, no brainstorming, no side topics. It's just disciplined review. And some people say, with regards to OKRs and the red, amber, green, we don't even discuss green, because if something's a green, then we know it's been done, because the scoreboard is there, it's visible. So we don't have to come back to it. Let's discuss. What are your constraints? What are your issues? If it's an amber or red, that's it. So, the red rule. If a key result, and this is something, please, if a key result is red for 2 consecutive weeks and no corrective action is taken, you do not have an OKR system. You've actually just got a reporting ritual, exactly like it says here, reporting theater. People come together, blah, blah, blah. Okay? But if there's accountability in that and follow through, because weekly rhythm creates momentum. And what does momentum do? It creates compounding. So please just be aware of that. So remember what I said, there's 2 key things to ensuring that once you've written a great objectives and key results, you've got weekly or bi-weekly meeting rhythms, to check how people are doing, red, amber, green, and constraints. And then the next thing is you must have a scoreboard, because what gets measured visibly, it's one of those things, gets improved. A scoreboard must be visible, simple, updated weekly, and focused only on your 3 to 4 key results. It must be very clear who owns it, because if it lives in someone's notebook, I can promise you it doesn't. And the scoreboard answers one question: are we winning this quarter? And the scoreboard shows each key result, the baseline, the current number. Remember, these are your key results, okay? And your target, where you want to get to. Is it a red, amber, green? Okay? And who's the owner? Nothing more. Nothing more, that's it. Because remember, if we go and complicate things, it won't be used. And also, if it's hidden, it doesn't actually matter. And then, so, when you combine a clear objective with few key results, single ownership, weekly or bi-weekly review, a visible scoreboard, what happens? You create inevitability. Because without the weekly or bi-weekly rhythm, OKRs drift. Without a scoreboard, then OKRs become an opinion. But once you've got a weekly or bi-weekly meeting with a scoreboard, OKRs become operating discipline. And guys, I can promise you, You go and ask any one of us coaches, what is the biggest thing that led to majority of success, with with the businesses that we've assisted? They will tell you it's having this discipline of creating a strategy and then executing on that strategy, which is your objectives and key results, your annual 1 to 2, then identifying what are your constraints, your bottleneck, and then that feeds through into your 90 days. And then from your 90 days, you're going to have your objectives, max 3 there, max 3 for 90 days, and then going to have key results that are attached. And remember, key results must be outcome-based, must be smart to have a time, must be owner and all of that. And then from each key result, you're going to have to deliver on activities that need to be done on a weekly basis. So, execution maturity. Ambition does not scale a business. It's the rhythm that does. So, execution maturity is not built in ambition. It is built in rhythm. Execution maturity is not built in one quarter. It's built in repetition. Annual direction, quarterly focus, weekly discipline. And this is what we talk about, strategic compounding. So, before you leave, I'd just like you to write one sentence for yourself. Nobody, you don't have to share it, and I'm asking you, what behavior changes in the next, starting today, starting tomorrow? I've been lenient by saying in the next 3 days. I don't know what that is there. Let me remove this. Examples can be, we're going to review our priorities weekly. Even if you haven't started doing your OKRs and that's cool. But start doing something, change that behavior. We will stop adding initiatives mid-quarter. I actually had a client, that I was with yesterday. And we've been working, and I think, we've created, wonderful and well thought out objectives and key results. And because his quarter ends, his year ends August or something, so he's still busy in the middle. And he wants to go and add on additional things, but remember, less is more. Focus on what we've decided on, because those things have been developed from your strategy. So everything has been well thought out. And then perhaps a thing you can write, we will enforce single ownership. Please, this is one of the biggest things, because that also drives accountability. Because if you don't have an owner, or you've got too many owners, there's no accountability. And one of the biggest things that I also see in businesses that they struggle with is lack of accountability. Okay. So, strategy is not proven by clarity. It is proven by behavior. I know I keep on repeating, but I just wanted you to understand. We've done our strategy. You've worked through that. Then from our strategy, we go and identify what are the key strategic priorities? Because you went through, that document that I sent, and if you don't have it, Tracy will send it to you. And then we said, okay, from our strategy, what were the key strategic priorities that we believed were important? And that you would have got from your SWOT, you would have got from your key capabilities, your key competencies that are required for you to achieve your unique and value proposition. It could come from maybe your reason for being. Then you start thinking you've got to focus a lot. So what happens, you've got all these strategic priorities. But remember, OKRs force you to narrow your priorities down. And that's why we say you can have, because sometimes we work with companies and they can have 10 priorities. But then we say, okay, cool. We need to design your 12-month objectives and key results. And from there we say max 2. Go, what are the 2 things that if achieved, your business is going to be in a very different place with key results, okay? 2 objectives with their 3 to 4 max key results. And then we go and identify what are the biggest constraints. Because if you don't identify that constraint, the root cause, this is about the root cause, the bottleneck. But if you do, then you go and create your quarterly, your 90-day objectives. Have a maximum of 3 there. With their own key results, and with their own key results, they've got each key result has got actions that need to be achieved. And guys, I can tell you now, if you've got the weekly or bi-weekly discipline, and you're really disciplined with this, together with a scoreboard, you're going to be in a very different place next week. Next week, I'd love it if it was just next week so soon, but next year. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. And now I'll open up to questions. If anybody has one, please, you're most welcome to.
Yeah, I just want to say something, Larry.
Yeah, Michael, how's it?
Just want to say thank you again for the most fantastic presentation. I've really learned a lot because I probably got about 10 to 15 key priorities, and I've learned from your presentation that I've just got to focus on 2 and get them right, and those 2 will make a massive difference to my business. So thank you for that. And I think the behavioral story is probably the hardest, because how do you change bad habits? I think that's a thing that you have to deal with your mind more than anything else.
Absolutely.
On that.
Yeah, absolutely, Michael. That's really the biggest thing is what do we do? And there's a whole thing in also part of strategy is a key part of strategy is, what do you say no to? And this is where a lot of entrepreneurs, because they think, wow, they can see the big picture, how much money they're going to make and everything like that. It's not that it's not that we're saying we're never going to do it. But what we're saying is we're not going to do it now. And a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with this. Hence the reason why some of us have got so many objectives and key results. But Michael, adding to that, change, and this is, when we talk about the compounding advantage, is begin with something small. Go and review. So maybe for you, it might be taking your 10, 15 objectives and breaking them down and saying, okay, cool. For the next quarter, what are the 2 or 3 that out of those that are going to move the needle the most? What are the 2 and 3? Go and put everything aside, please. It's not that we're dumping them. Okay? And then go and what's a key thing that that we've realized at Grow, with all the businesses that we work with. Because before we used to, it's great coming up with objectives and key results. Go and reduce turnaround time from this to this. Okay? Go and improve your net promoter score from this to this. But if people don't have those little actions in other, those weekly, daily actions that tell them what to do, a lot of people get stuck there. Hence, if, at Grow, we make a big thing that we don't only do the objectives and key results, we ensure that there's a full action plan so somebody knows what to do on a daily or weekly basis. Otherwise, like you say, the mindset comes in big time.
Sorry, there's one other thing I just want to mention, Larry. I think part of the important things, or part of the whirlwind, is in a business, especially when you're growing it, is that little word called cash flow. And sometimes you have to focus on that cash flow, because in order to do the important stuff, you need to be able to spend the time, and maybe you need to chase the money. So that's a bit of a contradictory, but yeah. So how would you handle that one?
So remember, so if you recall, Michael, one of the key things, with the whirlwind is the paradox. And what the paradox is, we need to focus on serving the customer. We need to focus on cash flow. We need to focus on, on getting the money. Okay? Because if those things don't happen, your business is not going to be going on a daily basis. But a key thing, okay, so Michael, I spoke about, when we talk about small steps, okay, I spoke about ideally you want to have 3 hours where you've diarized in your diary, you've said, this is what I'm going to be doing. At this time, I'm going to be focusing on my business, okay? All I'm saying is go and start with half an hour then. Go and put 30 minutes aside. And I'm going to say to you, and I'm saying this to everybody, if you cannot afford even, and I'm going to maybe put 1 or 2 hours, but I'm asking you to start with half an hour. If you cannot go and put that half an hour aside, then your priorities are totally wrong. Your priorities are totally wrong. You got to commit. And it just begins by committing. Start with half an hour. I don't care right now, but just start. Because the wonderful thing, it's that compounding, is that once you just start off with that 30 minutes and then you start saying, okay, cool. So leaving time, I'm saying 98% of your week, go and focus on collecting cash. Go and focus on customer service, whatever, all of those things are. But go and start with 2, 3, 4%, whatever your time is, on that small little. And then once you start doing that, you will see how you start growing. And then your mindset starts saying, okay, cool. You know what? This is actually not that difficult. Let me move from half an hour, because also what happens, we start seeing the benefits. And you feel good after that. I can promise you, after that half an hour. Then you say, okay, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Michael, I hope that makes sense.
Great. Brilliant.
Okay. You know what I am going to do? I'm going to do, Tracy, what I'll also do, I've created on chat, I've created a GBT, which has got everything on how to go and build a successful objective and key results. And it actually works it. And from there, you can actually break down your actions. Okay, and that might just be a great step for you, Michael, but I know I'm talking to everybody else.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Go on that. Okay, it'll ask you some questions, maybe if it doesn't have enough context. But remember, with AI, the more context something has, the better. Waffle, but don't give it, don't waffle from different, but give it what it needs to know as much as possible. And then you'll see, and you can say, give me my annual. Okay, cool. Once you become clear, then we start defining what's your biggest constraint, and then go to your 90 days, which I hope will benefit everybody. And I'm happy to share that with everybody. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much.
And hopefully we'll see you in the next one.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye, everyone. Keep well. Cheers.